India's telecommunication network is the second largest in the world based on the total number of telephone users. It has one of the lowest call tariffs in the world, enabled by the mega telephone networks and hyper-competition among them. It has the world's third largest internet user base, according to the Department of Telecommunication of India. As on March 2015, India has 302.35 million internet connections. Major sectors of the Indian telecommunication industry are telephony, internet and television broadcast industry in the country, which is in an ongoing process of transforming into next-generation network. Employs an extensive system of modern network elements such as digital telephone exchanges, mobile switching centers, media gateways and signaling gateways at the core, interconnected by a wide variety of transmission systems using fiber optics and microwave radio relay networks. The access network, which connects the subscriber to the core, is highly diversified with different copper pair, optic fiber and wireless technologies. DTH, a relatively new broadcasting technology, has attained significant popularity in the television segment. The introduction of private FM has given a fillip to the radio broadcasting in India. Telecommunication in India has greatly been supported by the INSAT system of the country, one of the largest domestic satellite systems in the world. India possesses a diversified communications system which links all parts of the country by telephone, internet, radio, television and satellite. Indian telecom industry underwent a high pace of market liberalization and growth since the 1990s and now has become the world's most competitive and one of the fastest-growing telecom markets. The industry has grown over 20 times in just 10 years, from under 37 million subscribers in the year 2001 to over 846 million subscribers in the year 2011. India has the world's second-largest mobile phone user base with over 929.37 million users as of May 2012. It has the world's second-largest internet user base with over 300 million as of June 2015. The total revenue of the Indian telecom sector grew by 7% to 2,832 billion rupees for 2010-11 financial year, while revenues from telecom equipment segment stood at 1,170 billion rupees. Telecommunication has supported the socio-economic development of India and has played a significant role to narrow down the rural-urban digital divide to some extent. It also has helped to increase the transparency of governance with the introduction of e-governance in India. The government has pragmatically used modern telecommunication facilities to deliver mass education programs for the rural folk of India. History. The history of Indian telecom can be started with the introduction of telegraph. The Indian postal and telecom sectors are one of the world's oldest. In 1850, the first experimental electric telegraph line was started between Calcutta and Diamond Harbour. In 1851, it was opened for the use of the British East India Company. The Posts and Telegraphs Department occupied a small corner of the Public Works Department at the time. The construction of 4,000 miles of telegraph lines was started in November 1853. These connected Kolkata and Peshawar in the north, Agra, Mumbai through Sindhugats, and Chennai in the south, Uttarakhand and Bangalore. William O'Shaughnessy, who pioneered the telegraph and telephone in India, belonged to the Public Works Department, and worked towards the development of telecom throughout this period. A separate department was opened in 1854 when telegraph facilities were opened to the public. In 1880, two telephone companies, namely the Oriental Telephone Company Limited and the Anglo-Indian Telephone Company Limited, approached the Government of India to establish telephone exchange in India. The permission was refused on the grounds that the establishment of telephones was a government monopoly and that the government itself would undertake the work. In 1881, the government later reversed its earlier decision and a license was granted to the Oriental Telephone Company Limited of England for opening telephone exchanges at Calcutta, Bombay, Madras and Ahmedabad, and the first formal telephone service was established in the country. On 28 January 1882, Major East Bering, member of the Governor-General of India's Council, declared open the telephone exchanges in Calcutta, Bombay and Madras. The exchange in Calcutta, named the Central Exchange, had a total of 93 subscribers in its early stage. Later that year, Bombay also witnessed the opening of a telephone exchange. Further developments and milestones: pre-1902 cable telegraph, 1902 first wireless telegraph station established between Sagar Island and Sandhead, 1907 first central battery of telephones introduced in Kanpur, 1914 first automatic exchange installed in Shimla, 1927 radio telegraph system between the UK and India, with Imperial wireless chain beam stations at Khadki and Dawn, inaugurated by Lord Irwin on 23 July by exchanging greetings with King George V, 1933 radio telephone system inaugurated between the UK and India, 1953 to 12-channel carrier system introduced, 1960 first subscriber trunk dialing route commissioned between Lucknow and Kanpur, 1975 first PCM system commissioned between Mumbai City and Andheri telephone exchanges, 1976 first digital microwave junction, 1979 first optical fiber system for local junction commissioned at Pune, 1980 first satellite earth station for domestic communications established at Secunderabad, UP, 1983 first analog stored program control exchange for trunk lines commissioned at Mumbai, 1984 C.Dot established for indigenous development and production of digital exchanges, 1995 first mobile telephone service started on non-commercial basis on 15 August 1995 in Delhi, 1995 Internet introduced in India starting with Lakshmi Nagar, Delhi, 15 August 1995. Development of broadcasting. Radio broadcasting was initiated in 1927 but became state responsibility only in 1930. In 1937 it was given the name All India Radio, and since 1957, it has been called Akashvani. Limited duration of television programming began in 1959, and complete broadcasting followed in 1965. The Ministry of Information and Broadcasting owned and maintained the audio-visual apparatus, including the television channel Doordarshan, in the country prior to the economic reforms of 1991. In 1997, an autonomous body was established in the name of Prasar Bharati to take care of the public service broadcasting under the Prasar Bharati Act. All India Radio and Doordarshan, which earlier were working as media units under the Ministry of R&B, became constituents of the body. Pre-liberalization statistics. While all the major cities and towns in the country were linked with telephones during the British period, the total number of telephones in 1948 numbered only around 80,000. Post-independence, growth remained slow because the telephone was seen more as a status symbol rather than being an instrument of utility. The number of telephones grew leisurely to 980,000 in 1971, 2.15 million in 1981 and 5.07 million in 1991. The year economic reforms were initiated in the country. Liberalization and privatization. Liberalization of Indian telecommunication industry started in 1981 when Prime Minister Indira Gandhi signed contracts with Alcatel-Cit of France to merge with the state-owned telecom company, in an effort to set up 5 million lines per year. But soon the policy was let down because of political opposition. Attempts to liberalize the telecommunication industry were continued by the following government under the prime ministership of Rajiv Gandhi. He invited Sam Pitroda, a US-based non-resident Indian NR and a former Rockwell International executive, to set up a center for development of telematics which manufactured electronic telephone exchanges in India for the first time. Sam Pitroda had a significant role as a consultant and advisor in the development of telecommunication in India. In 1985, the Department of Telecom was separated from Indian Post and Telecommunication Department. DOT was responsible for telecom services in entire country until 1986, when Mahangar Telephone Nigam Limited and Videsh Sanchar Nigam Limited were carved out of DOT to run the telecom services of metro cities and international long-distance operations respectively. The demand for telephones was ever increasing, and in the 1990s Indian government was under increasing pressure to open up the telecom sector for private investment as a part of liberalization, privatization, globalization policies that the government had to accept to overcome the severe fiscal crisis and resultant balance of payments issue in 1991. Consequently, private investment in the sector of value-added services was allowed and cellular telecom sector were opened up for competition from private investments. It was during this period that the Narasimha Rao-led government introduced the National Telecommunications Policy in 1994, which brought changes in the following areas: ownership, service and regulation of telecommunications infrastructure. The policy introduced the concept of telecommunication for all, and its vision was to expand the telecommunication facilities to all the villages in India. Liberalization in the basic telecom sector was also envisaged in this policy. They were also successful in establishing joint ventures between state-owned telecom companies and international players. Foreign firms were eligible to 49% of the total stake. The multinationals were just involved in technology transfer and not policy making. During this period, the World Bank and ITU had advised the Indian government to liberalize long-distance services to release the monopoly of the state-owned and VSNL and to enable competition in the long-distance carrier business, which would help reduce tariffs and better the economy of the country. The Rao-run government instead liberalized the local services, taking the opposite political parties into confidence and assuring foreign involvement in the long-distance business. After 5 years, the country was divided into 20 telecommunication circles for basic telephony and 18 circles for mobile services. These circles were divided into category A, B and C depending on the value of the revenue in each circle. The government threw open the bids to one private company per circle along with government-owned per circle. For cellular service, 2 service providers were allowed per circle and a 15 years license was given to each provider. During all these improvements, the government did face oppositions from ET, MTNL, VSNL and other labor unions, but they managed to keep away from all the hurdles. In 1997, the government set up try which reduced the interference of government in deciding tariffs and policy making. The political powers changed in 1999 and the new government under the leadership of Atal Bihari Vajpayee was more pro-reforms and introduced better liberalization policies. In 2000, the Vajpayee government constituted the Telecom Disputes Settlement and Appellate Tribunal through an amendment of the TRA Act. 1997. The primary objective of TDSAT's establishment was to release TRI from adjudicatory and dispute settlement functions in order to strengthen the regulatory framework. Any dispute involving parties like licensor, licensee, service provider and consumers are resolved by TDSAT. Moreover, any direction or order or decision of TRI can be challenged by appealing in TDSAT. The government corporatized the operations wing of DOT on 1 October 2000 and named it as Department of Telecommunication Services, which was later named as Bharat Sanchar Nigam Limited. The proposal of raising the stake of foreign investors from 49% to 74% was rejected by the opposite political parties and leftist thinkers. Domestic business groups wanted the government to privatize VSNL. Finally, in April 2002, the government decided to cut its stake of 53% to 26% in VSNL and to throw it open for sale to private enterprises. Tata finally took 25% stake in VSNL. This was a gateway to many foreign investors to get entry into the Indian telecom markets. After March 2000, the government became more liberal in making policies and issuing licenses to private operators. The government further reduced license fees for cellular service providers and increased the allowable stake to 74% for foreign companies. Because of all these factors, the service fees finally reduced and the call costs were cut greatly, enabling every common middle-class family in India to afford a cell phone. Nearly 32 million handsets were sold in India. The data reveals the real potential for growth of the Indian mobile market. Many private operators, such as Reliance Communications, Jio, Tata Indicom, Vodafone, Loop Mobile, Airtel, Idea etc., successfully entered the high-potential Indian telecom market. In March 2008, the total GSM and CDMA mobile subscriber base in the country was 375 million, which represented a nearly 50% growth when compared with previous year. As the unbranded Chinese cell phones which do not have international mobile equipment identity numbers pose a serious security risk to the country, mobile network operators therefore suspended the usage of around 30 million mobile phones by the 30th of April. Phones without valid IMEI cannot be connected to cellular operators. 5 to 6 years, the average monthly subscribers additions were around 0.05 to 0.1 million only, and the total mobile subscribers base in December 2002 stood at 10.5 million. However, after a number of proactive initiatives taken by regulators and licenses, the total number of mobile subscribers has increased rapidly to over 929 million subscribers as of May 2012. India has opted for the use of both the GSM and CDMA technologies in the mobile sector. In addition to landline and mobile phones, some of the companies also provide the WLL service. The mobile tariffs in India have also become the lowest in the world. A new mobile connection can be activated with a monthly commitment of 15 cents only. In 2005 alone, additions increased to around 2 million per month in 2003-04 and 2004-05.